Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There, a fortnightly video stream and podcast currently focused on Marvel's What If animated series, which is available to watch on Disney+. In today's episode, we're going to have a spoiler-filled conversation around areas of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including the last two episodes of Season 1 of What If. That's Episode 8, What If Ultron won, and Episode 9, What If the Watcher broke his oath. So, as usual, I am joined by guests from both sides of the Atlantic. Joining us from New York City, we have my co-host on the Let's See What's Out There podcast, Pete Mealy. Hey, Pete.
Hey, how we doing?
Yeah, good. I just realized, actually, I didn't introduce myself. So
Well, let me.
I went into auto mode.
Yeah. Can I just say that I am so happy to be here with my co-host from the Let's See What's Out There podcast, the proprietor of the Home Media Minefield YouTube channel, which is a fantastic channel that takes you through the intricacies of home media. And here he is, everyone's favorite, live from London, Keith Isles.
There you go. I'm sadly not quite on his game today, as you could already find out from that. But yes, I am a long-time enthusiast of film and television. And yes, please check out some of our other work on this channel. We talk about all sorts of movies and stuff, as well as reviews. But we are not alone in this quest. We've got... To finish the Holy Trinity here, we've got our good friend also from London. We have filmmaker Clive Ashenden. Welcome, Clive.
Hello.
How are you today?
Yes. Well, I'm good. Yeah, we've made it to the end, didn't we? We made it to the end. The multiverse is still in one piece, or is that multiple pieces? I'm not sure.
It is indeed. Yeah. No, that's a really good question, which I'm sure we'll delve into. So we got through. What if? I mean, it's not. I'm enjoying it. I've enjoyed this season. I think it's a really intriguing concept. Some episodes have been better than others, but I've also. There's a lot of stuff to watch out there. There's so much entertainment, whether it's streaming shows or limited series or movies or whatever. There's so much stuff to watch, and sometimes I do think to myself, I love the MCU, but do I need to invest in this as well, time-wise? Certainly, in terms of talking about it, there are other shows actually that I'd rather be discussing on the podcast and on the live, on the video stream. But overall, I've kind of enjoyed it. I mean, before we delve into these two episodes and Pete gives us the wonderful recaps, what are your thoughts, just sort of generally speaking, about this series?
Clive, you want to take it?
Sure. Yeah. Overall, I guess my thoughts are that it was a fun series. It's kind of perhaps a sort of like a family-oriented series in terms of sort of the language and the violence. It's not. I wouldn't have said it was just aimed at kids. There's some stuff in there for like hardcore MCU fans, but there's also, it's also just a fairly sort of light show. I mean, there are a couple of more serious episodes, but it's fun. It did initially seem like, like this is going to be the one MCU series where it's not going to have this big arc plot, right? It's all going to be separate stories. You don't have to, you can just dip in and out. You don't have to sort of follow it because it's just, each one is its own what if, its own little bubble, its own little bit of the multiverse. And basically what we discovered is that Marvel can't help themselves. They have to Marvelize everything, right? Yep. Everything has to be interconnected into a big kind of thing.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, we speculated quite a lot about this in some of our earlier shows, didn't we, as to whether some of the things that they weaved in those episodes were going to sort of come back, and whether they were setting something up, for a finale or for whatever. And it turns out, particularly as we dig into these 2 episodes, that that was definitely the case. Which, like you said, Marvel can't really help themselves, can they, with this sort of thing? What about you, Pete? What are your sort of general wider thoughts on this stuff?
Yeah, I think I'll take from some of what both of you have said, right? I think, like you said, Keith, there's some episodes that are a lot better than others. And Clive, like you said, I think, it's really geared towards a wider audience maybe than some of the other Marvel movies. But just me as an observer and a content consumer, I loved it. Yeah, me as a watcher, I loved
Sorry,
it.
I couldn't help that.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Yeah. Because, all I could think was, I'd watch all these multiverses,
Yeah.
I loved it. I got way into it. Sure, there's episodes that didn't really ring well with me. But I think that it was fun to see them tie it all up. And also, I like that they didn't try to back away from the things that didn't work. I think that they, we'll get into it maybe, right? But the parts of each sort of episode where I was like, well, I don't think that was such a good choice. They didn't try to shy away from it here as they brought them all together.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I think actually that's a really good segue into your recap of the 2 episodes. So, go for it.
I think we should just do both of them together, right? I think we're going to approach this as one, or you want me to separate them?
It's all kind of one story, isn't it?
Yeah. I look at it sort of parts 1 and 2, or parts, or even parts 8 and 9, maybe.
Yeah. All right.
Go for it.
So, what if Ultron didn't lose and he got the Soul Stone, and then he gets all the stone, and then he destroys all the life on that planet except for the Black Widow and Hawkeye, who figure out that Zola could be the only thing that destroys Ultron. And while they're doing that, Ultron becomes aware of the Watcher, and then they start fighting. And then Black Widow and Hawkeye get Zola into a USB stick, but they can't hack the mainframe because Ultron is in a different universe fighting the Watcher, and dun dun dun, to be continued. Okay, but then in the next episode, the Watcher pulls together everything we've already seen. So we got Captain Carter, Star-Lord T'Challa, Dr. Cthulhu, Killmonger, Party Thor, and they team up to fight the multiverse Ultron. And they have this huge fight, and they get the Zola bug into the Ultron, and then they win. But then Killmonger is like, those are my stones. But Zola is like, oh, no, they are my stones. And then Dr. Cthulhu and the Watcher seal the 2 of them and the stones in their infinite power struggle, and then everyone gets to go home. Except for Black Widow, who gets to go into multiverse that doesn't have a Black Widow. I see what they did there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, which we'll dig into for sure. But again, as we had sort of discussions on our previous episodes, and if you're listening or watching this for the first time, please, go back and check out some of our earlier episodes on this, because we did have a lot of discussion as to whether or not this was going to be connected or not. And we all commented on the fact that the Watcher in the first couple of episodes is just this voiceover, and then gradually they started showing more and more of the Watcher. We would have glimpses in some scenes of the Watcher being in the background, and we think, oh, is that a stylistic thing that they decided to do after they'd already completed a couple of episodes? But we now see, as usual with Marvel and these things, it was all part of the plan, right? It was all part of gradually introducing the character more and more and more into the show, until, rather than just being an observer or a watcher, he actually becomes part of the actual storyline and the plot. And I don't know, again, I'm not an aficionado enough of the comic books to know whether or not that actually happened. I don't know whether, in the comics many moons ago, whether the Watcher actually became actively involved in any of the what ifs that he was overseeing. So I don't know. Do any of you know the answer to that?
Clive, didn't
I think
you?
the answer is yes.
Okay. I think you mentioned
not as a matter of course,
right.
But yeah, because I mean, after a while, because what if you could? It's like an infinite sort of sandpit, right? You can do all kinds of things, from the sublime to the ridiculous, and they did.
They did.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure that definitely happened in at least one. But
right, no, that's cool. Okay, well, I'll be honest. I've watched these. I've watched them quite recently, but I've not done any further research. Normally, as you know, I try and do my research on these things. But in this instance, I've got to be honest, I haven't. Life's just been kind of busy with work and whatever. So, yeah, I'm sort of coming in fresh. I have my thoughts, but I'd rather hear from you guys, actually. So who wants to start off? We'll begin, I guess, with episode 8. What if Ultron won? Now, is it what if, or is it so what for you guys?
So this one I think was there's been this trend in the what ifs where stuff gets kind of dark and depressing and then just sort of ends. And I think that this episode, it was really gearing that way for me. It starts very bleakly, where Black Widow and Hawkeye are the only people left alive on the planet. And so I was sort of checking out because I don't know. I'm not in a place where I wanted to engage on like a very depressing story. But then I think it sort of, when it turned around and it got to the point where you're like, oh, this is going to be a to be continued, right? There's more here than they can wrap up in one episode. I started to get really interested and into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Clive?
I thought with this one that the action stuff in it was probably the best of the whole series in terms of just how it was put together. It might be that that's because it's Hawkeye and Black Widow, and so there's less sort of there's no magic or laser stuff going on. It's but it felt like they really went to town with the kind of camera movements, and it also, I've been a bit up and down on the animation style because they kept this kind of coherent thing, which does make it feel all of a piece. And now as it all leads up to this thing where everything joins together, you can see why. Mm-hmm. But I felt like the animation style has suited some stories more than others. And this one, it felt like it really suited it and it worked very well. So I enjoyed the action stuff. I also as a fan of like Hawkeye in the comics, I quite like the fact that that it was him and Black Widow who managed to survive, because I feel like Hawkeye often gets like short shrift as like, you've got the most powerful people on the planet and a dude who's quite good at firing arrows. It's sort of like he's easy to mock. So the idea that he manages to survive alongside Natasha, who's just like a very capable like spy with ace kind of combat skills. Mm-hmm. It's quite nice. It's almost like they are the last hope for humanity, and they're not kind of super humanity. They're just highly skilled humanity.
Yeah, right? That's a really good point. They're not the super powered members of the Avengers. They're not the ones with special they've got some equipment, but not special equipment like an Iron Man suit. And they're not gods from another realm, or have actual powers, whether it's through science or magic or whatever. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I like that. That's a very interesting observation. In fact, that the two sort of very skilled but total human characters were the ones that were the survivors and the last hopes. Yeah, no, that's good. That was good. Obviously, we've got a lot of people back. We're always talking about the voice acting on this as well as the animation, in the sort of likeness to the actual real life characters. But yeah, so we've got Jeremy Renner back. We also have Benedict Cumberbatch back. Lake Bell is doing the Black Widow Natasha Romanoff voice. We get Toby Jones back for Armin Zola, which is cool to have Toby Jones back in it. And for the voice of Ultron, which obviously was James Spader in the film, we've got Ross McQuand doing the voice here. Now, the interesting thing with him is he's no stranger to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he actually provided the voice for Red Skull in Avengers Endgame. Because obviously Hugo Weaving didn't want to return to that role, so it was one of the recasts that they did, but the less noticeable recasts, I guess, because it was the Red Skull. But so it was good that we had all of them back. Obviously, Mark Wingert doing a really good Tony Stark Iron Man. We've talked about him before. And then Alexa Daniels for Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. So I don't think I missed anyone. Oh, yeah, and of course, Josh Keaton doing Steve Rogers, Captain America. So it's sort of half and half in this episode. You got half of the originals back, and then half of the cast are, sound-alikes.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your, obviously you mentioned Ross. Is it Marquand? Is that
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say the only bit of voice acting / casting that I thought didn't work for me was Ultron, because James Spader has such a distinctive voice.
Yes.
And he's, he really kind of lifts up the sort of the menace of Ultron in Avengers Age of Ultron, which is by no means a perfect film, but he really brings something to it. And for me, it was almost like a completely different character when I was watching this Ultron. I mean, obviously he's in, I almost felt it would have been better to get Paul Bettany to do the voice, because he's in the Vision body.
Right. Yes, and they've used Paul Bettany, haven't they? So yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that would have been more fun. But it felt like you're almost like in this heart. He's like he wasn't doing like a James Spader as Ultron voice. He was doing more of a Red Skull type voice. I don't know. Maybe it's just it popped out to me. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
No, I think that's a fair comment. I mean, we're not saying that Ross McQuand was giving a bad performance or a bad reading or anything, but like you've rightly said, James Spader's voice is quite unique and recognizable, and I guess he hasn't done such a good impression of that as, say, Mick Wingert doing a Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, I guess, but yeah, I think that's fair criticism. What about you, Pete? Have you got thoughts on that?
My counterpoint is that when the instant Ultron spoke, I went, "Oh, James Spader wouldn't do it," right? But because I was like, "Oh, look, they got someone to do a James Spader impression." But that was like, it was really only his first line in the episode where I was just like, "Oh, it's not James Spader." But then after that, like, it flowed over me, and I think by the second episode here, after a week, it didn't even register to me like, "Oh, it's not James Spader." It was just like, "Oh, that's Ultron."
Yes. And
so
also,
for me, it worked. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, we are talking about an alternate Ultron as well, aren't we? So I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like it took me out of the whole second episode or something. It's just I particularly noticed it in the first one, and it just seemed that the way Ultron was characterized was very different. But then I guess this is a different part of the multiverse, so that's what it is. So
yeah. No, I think that's fair, and I mean we're certainly not taking anything away from that actor by saying so either. So yeah, it's that's absolutely fine.
You know who Ross Marquand is, right? He's best known for being in The Walking Dead, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he is in that show. That's right. Yeah,
he's one of the longtime Walking Dead cast members, and so he's doing great. He's hilarious.
I was gonna say he's doing well for himself, isn't he? Enviable position of being involved in the MCU and the Walking Dead franchise. Yeah, both of which are ever-growing franchises, it seems.
Yeah.
But cool. Okay. I mean, anything else about this particular episode that
I've got a couple of questions about it.
I knew you would, guess. Clive. I knew you would. Yes.
Well, or maybe it's 3 questions. I don't know. I guess the first one was did anyone else enjoy the bit where it's Black Widow and Hawkeye are in the Raiders of the Lost Ark sort of place, looking in all the crates, right? Looking for the Ark of the Covenant / the thing that's going to defeat Ultron, the MacGuffin, and then and we have and we have the Watcher basically playing the audience surrogate, going, "No, it's that box. Yeah, you've got it there. It's right there." And it was quite amusing. It's like that thing of getting the Watcher to the moment when he's going to intervene, and in the end he doesn't have to at that point. And it's kind of they sort of played it as like a humorous beat, which was quite fun, I thought.
Yeah.
What did you guys think?
I thought that was fun as well. And don't they? They actually do call out Raiders, don't they? They do.
They do.
Yeah. Is that that's Natasha, isn't it? That she's kind of the movie geek we've learned, haven't we, across some of these things?
Yeah.
But I thought that was a really nice moment. Yeah. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, I loved it. Like I said, it was a slow burn for me, but by the time they got into it, I really liked it. I liked how they had sort of a alternate take on the Soul Stone scene from Endgame, where it instead of both Clint and Natasha trying to kill themselves for each other, Clint was like, I'm done, and Natasha was trying to hold on to him.
Yes.
And so it was a real interesting mirror for me on that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, very intentional references, the way that was basically drawn and edited. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Cool.
So that's question 1.
Okay.
Right? Question 2 was it just me, or was the heroic sacrifice, and I'm putting that in inverted commas, of Hawkeye utterly pointless in this episode? Because it seemed like, well, they had this whole bit where he's falling back in slow motion under the sort of godlight, and then he fires the explosive arrow, and the explosive arrow takes out all of the bots. But couldn't he have fired the explosive arrow from the top, and then just got away? It was like a big moment, and it was kind of a nice inversion of the sort of Infinity War. Was it Infinity War or Endgame? Endgame thing, where it's the other way around, where she sacrifices herself so he can live. So I get why they did it. I just felt like the way that it was done, it sort of felt a bit pointless. Like, oh, he's just killed himself for not a lot of not a lot of benefit. But was it just me that sort of felt that?
I kind of agree with you. I mean, I think it was kind of, it is for the memberberry's sake, isn't it? It was just to have that kind of cool reference to Endgame, I think. But I don't know. Do you have a different thought on it, Pete? I sort of tended to agree with Clive, really. But yeah.
So I thought it was much more about like depression, and not so much self-sacrifice or heroic sacrifice as it was like he gave up, right? And so Natasha was like trying to hold on to him, and he was like, I can't do this anymore. Right? He wasn't being heroic. He was throwing in the towel. And so I thought of it as like a real opposite of that other scene where they were both trying to sacrifice themselves. In this one, one person was giving up and the other person was trying to save them and then had to let them go. So instead of it being like mirror images of each other, they were actual opposites. Right? Like two different directions, both of these scenes. And when you pair them together, it's an interesting comparison.
That's interesting. I mean, I felt like that was the subtext, but for me, it read like they were trying to play it like it was this moment of sacrifice. But yeah, that's interesting.
I felt like it was the text, not so much the subtext, right? Like he literally says, "I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep going." Yeah.
No, that's an interesting read on it, and yeah, fair. Cool. Have you got another question, Clive?
Well, it was the last one.
You're here.
The last one was more just an observation, which was just my favourite thing about this episode is the bit where it becomes the in Infinity Ultron versus the Watcher, and they have this massive fight where they're each punch and they're punching each other into a different reality, and it's just. I really felt that opened it up, and it was like the most visually exciting moment of like the whole series. So I was like, at the end of it, it got me really kind of stoked for the final episode and being like, oh well, I mean, clearly, there's the sort of, I think there's the hook of like he goes to see emo Doctor Strange of like, yeah, you were right kind of thing, but so you sort of know where it's going, but just that kind of made me kind of think, oh, this could be really cool, this final episode. So
yeah, no, I mean, it definitely, what it did very well was it put the high stakes in there, didn't it? So it did make you realize, oh, the series is going somewhere. This isn't just another random episode. It's there's big consequences here. And yeah, I kind of like that, and I like the fact that the Watcher has more to do. Is active rather than a passive observer. Yeah. Pete, anything to add?
Nope, full agreement.
Cool. All right. Well, if there's nothing more on that one, shall we? We are sort of at the halfway markish anyway. So shall we move into what if the Watcher broke his oath, which is the final episode of this season. I'm on the understanding that it's already, well, not only renewed for a second season, I believe they've actually made a fair number of the next season already. Yeah. Which is good. And again, we get a lot of, this picks up a lot of other threads from previous ones. We get, Haley Atwell back as Captain Carter. We get Frank Grillo back as Brock Rumlow. Chadwick Boseman, again, it's nice that we've had so much of him in this show, back as T'Challa. Who else came back? Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. Oh, this time we've got another change. So Gamora who is normally who is normally played by Zoe Saldana, is actually voiced by Cynthia K. McWilliams for this episode. So I guess Zoe Saldana was busy. We got Chris Hemsworth back, loving to play humorous Thor, which he seems to love to do, right? Party Thor. And then, we even get Kurt Russell back for doing the voice of Ego in this as well. So, quite in addition to the cast that we've already talked about on the previous episode. So, and I'll say straight away, I'm a big fan of Captain America Winter Soldier. So, of course, I did enjoy the opening of this episode where it's essentially that same thing, only with, Captain Carter. And I thought that they did that quite well. And, the sort of banter with Natasha, but, from a slightly different angle.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a huge Captain America fan, and so seeing that recreated, I thought was perfect. And the subtle changes that they made were just a lot of fun. Yeah,
absolutely. What about you, Clive? I bet you've got loads of notes and loads of.
I have got quite a few notes.
Yes. Otherwise,
you'd be surprised to hear. Well, I mean, an alternative title for this episode would be "What if COVID happened and they couldn't make one of their episodes where they set up the whole Gamora character who defeated Thanos, right? Because apparently that's what happens during the production. Okay. Because we re-meet all these characters that we've been meeting throughout the What's If series, right? Mm-hmm. But the Gamora like Thanos beta character, we haven't met her before, right? And apparently there was going to be this what if Tony Stark landed on Sakaar? I think that's, I'm getting the right planet there. Episode and which leads to Gamora defeating Thanos in that core of the multiverse. So, basically, we're missing an episode which apparently we're going to get at the beginning of next season. Because I don't know if they started it or they just moved it over, but so that was kind of interesting because you're like, hang on, did I miss a bit or did I remember? And it's like, no, we didn't. Well, yes, we literally missed a bit, but everyone did. It's not just at the back of your memory, like what happened to that bit. But so that was kind of interesting. It didn't affect the story. The story runs absolutely fine without us having that introduction, because we know who Gamora is if you've watched any MCU movies. Yeah. Exactly. I'm always happy to have a Haley Atwell back. It's always good to see Captain Carter in this version. I thought this was fun. Again, it was there were a huge amount of references in here. I've got to say, and it is amusing. It does make me chuckle, but I'm finding this version of Party Thor or whatever to actually be a tad irritating. I don't know about you guys. It was just one continuous joke, through the whole thing. But that's it. Is he's the kind of one. He's the humorous character in the group, right? Because everyone else is sort of, very either very serious or like they're like super noble, like T'Challa or Peggy Carter, or you've got the Killmonger with his own kind of agenda thing going on, and then you've got emo Doctor Strange over here, doing his kind of brooding. So I felt like you wanted the you wanted that bit of kind of like light stuff. I mean, I have seen, places like people have been felt a bit like we don't get quite so much of that sort of fizzing kind of witty repartee, like funny stuff that you get in a lot of the MCU movies, right? In the What If series. So I felt like this is them doing a bit of that.
You had it in
so
yeah.
So obviously they just really lean into it. So I could see why it would get like annoying, but for me, there wasn't enough of it to really bother me. So
it was fine. I mean, I think interestingly with Thor as a character in general, I just sort of think that it's gone a little bit from Chris Hemsworth portraying Thor to actually Thor becoming quite a bit of Chris Hemsworth. I don't know whether you guys think that, but if you go back and watch the original Thor movie now, it's actually quite jarring to sort of where Thor ended up at the latter half of the MCU, at the Infinity Saga, because certainly when they had Ragnarok, and I think that Taika Waititi gave Chris Hemsworth a lot more sort of free reign, and I think that there's definitely a lot. Chris Hemsworth as well as being the alpha male that he is also quite a witty and charismatic guy as well, isn't he? And I feel that a lot of that has been put into the Thor character now. What do you think?
From Kenneth Branagh Thor to Benny Hill Thor.
I'm loving the Britishness of all of that. That's brilliant.
I mean, accurate, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the first two Thor movies are very Kenneth Branagh inspired. But he was directing and he put his stamp on it. But then it definitely turned much more slapstick and I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, this is a different version of Thor anyway, isn't it? But yeah. It did make me chuckle, so I suppose it did what it was supposed to, right? But I don't know, Clive, you're a big comic book guy. Have you got any particular thoughts on the sort of evolution of Thor as a character? I mean, I didn't know a great deal about Thor prior to the MCU, to be honest, other than that dreadful Hulk TV movie that he was in. But have you got strong thoughts on this?
I think Thor's. I've enjoyed some like Thor in the comics, and Thor as a member of the Avengers. Was like one of the big three. In the comics, they often, particularly in the sort of like 80s stuff that I was reading growing up, it was like they really lent into the kind of like Cod Shakespeareanness of his dialogue, right? It was all like thou shalt feel the might of the hammer of Thor, and it was all a bit like that, which is quite fun, and just it kind of differentiated him from the others. But often he was almost like a Batman, in that he was like, because he was such a straight arrow, like he's more differentiated by like characters like a Loki. It's like what he is not, if you see what I mean, in the comics. So that sort of gave you, because when he's got someone to be an opposition to him, then you get a sense of like his values and what he's like. And also the whole thing in the comics was that he had an alter ego, which we never get any of that. I mean, I think they used the name Donald Blake once in the original Thor, but it's just like a nom de plume. It doesn't go anywhere. Whereas in the comics, there's this whole bit about he has this human alter ego who's actually like got a limp or like a disability where he's got a cane that he goes around with, and then what he does is he taps the cane on the floor and it turns into like his hammer, like when he wants to turn into the mighty Thor. So like that bit, they just, you know, it's gone away. I must admit I haven't read a lot of the more recent Thor stuff, so it wouldn't surprise me if they lent more into the MCU way of doing things. But yeah, I mean, and there's been multiple sort of storylines where Thor becomes no longer worthy to wield Mjolnir. That's where I can't pronounce it. Yeah, that one. The hammer, and so his powers get taken away temporarily or whatever, or they get given to someone else. So, you know, there's been lots of that, and there's different variants of Thor that we've seen. I think I get confused as to whether there's currently a female for Thor, or whether it's kind of they've had that and then moved on now. But yeah,
the current Thor is female, I think.
Yeah, okay.
And that's coming to the movies as well, isn't it? That's in the slate, I believe. I think.
Well, yeah,
that's what I heard.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing some variant of that. Yeah, I think.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, according to IMDb, that is actually Chadwick Boseman's official last role is in this episode. So he's not going to be, sadly, you know, he's not going to be back for any of the upcoming episodes. But I suppose it was bonus that you know we've because I felt like Black Panther, that was the last time we'd ever see him play that role, and I suppose really this series has been a little bit of a bonus that we've had, you know, more reprisals of that role, or well, not Black Panther so much, but T'Challa at least, you know, across these episodes, which is something as far as legacy goes, right?
Yeah, I think the Star-Lord T'Challa character was actually really nice. I enjoyed that in all of the episodes he popped up in. You know, if the Captain Carter is the kind of like, you know, flagship character for the series, and you know, there's a mid-credit sequence, isn't there, at the end of episode 2, which would indicate that they certainly believe that as well. Then, you know, the most kind of, you know, moving moments were, you know, watching that character and listening to Chadwick Boseman, who's sadly passed on, and you know, it is. I think it is a nice, you know, testament to his talent. Yeah.
Agreed. Any other questions or thoughts about this one then?
One thing that I absolutely loved in the episode that was super small, right? But when emo Doctor Strange, or Dr. Cthulhu, as I've been calling him, has his like tentacles branch out of his hands the first time.
Yes.
They cut to Captain Carter's eyes, right? And the face she makes is amazing, right? And they don't go into it, but it's like they show so much in that animation of like her thinking like, is that the thing that I fought for Hydra, right? And
yeah,
oh man, it's a great moment that is easy to miss, but is perfect in there.
Yeah. No, agreed. There's some good stuff there. Clive, anything from you? Have you got more questions?
I've got a couple of thoughts. One is that you know, one thread that's been pretty consistent throughout this whole series has been like just how disrespectful they've been to Tony Stark. It's like you know, it's become this running bit. You know, I saw I'm trying. It might have been Den of Geek, but I'm trying to remember where I saw it. They sort of they said it's like the we killed Kenny kind of almost like in South Park. It's like, oh, we killed Iron Man, because he just dies like really early multiple times in all of these timelines. And he's it's funny, it's like obviously Robert Downey Jr. is such a central figure in that whole first all those first stages of the MCU, and how important that character was. And now it's like you take him out of it. Now it's like they seem to like this whole series to going, actually he wasn't all that, which is kind of I mean, it's funny, but it's also a bit like, they're doing this bit again. It's like they make that whole thing of like when they introduce us to the sort of Gamora character, you have like the Tony Stark in this kind of like cosmic Hulkbuster armor, and it's like, I choose you, and it's like, no, not you, Tony Stark, you can stay right there. And it's like, was that necessary? Also, if you're fighting Ultron, don't you want as many like hands on deck as possible? It's like is he that useless that you just think, nah, don't worry about it, mate, you can stay home? It seems a bit like unnecessary. Like, why not just have I guess they thought maybe that it was too many characters and they didn't want another one in the mix, but it seemed a bit like, okay.
Yeah.
An unnecessary like kick while the man is down kind of moment. But
they killed Tony. Yeah.
Well, they didn't kill him this time. They left him behind like he's
true.
Jonesy the cat, out of Alien,
No, that is true, because like you said, he certainly for the Infinity Saga, one could argue that Tony Stark was kind of the heart of the whole saga, really. So it certainly all started with Iron Man, and he was involved in so many of those films. So yeah, I mean, I know people that would say the reason is because he's a white middle-aged man and all this sort of thing. I'm not necessarily going to buy into that theory on it, but yeah, it is an interesting observation, though, isn't it? So I don't know. I think I actually just think they're just having a bit of fun with it, right? It's just become a little bit of a kind of in joke, which Downey Jr. himself would probably find quite amusing. I'm sure. I'm sure he'd go along with it, or particularly as he's not learning his voice to it anyway. But yeah, I don't know. It is interesting, though, like you said, because yes, it has become a bit of a ongoing gag, hasn't it?
Yeah,
and yeah, you're right. I mean, why? I did think the same in terms of why didn't the Watcher recruit more? Was that something to do? I don't know whether they talked about it or not in the show, but was it something to do with he could only take one person from each alternate reality in order to not mess with the flow of the multiverse or something? I don't know why.
I don't know. It's like the thing, if once you break the rules, then it's sort of everything's up for grabs a bit, isn't it? It's kind of, you can argue that he doesn't want to disrupt the timelines too much, so he's just taking people out at moments where they can be taken out and hopefully then put back in again, and it won't disrupt things too much. But also he's looking for the people that he thinks will make the best team to take down this particular threat. So he's playing the the Samuel L. Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Of this bit of like putting the team together, and he needs people with a particular set of skills, obviously. So it's kind of
Liam Neeson. We need to get Liam Neeson.
That's right. Skills that make him a nightmare for people like Ultron, apparently. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you could also. It's one of those things where if you think about certain things too much, you're like, but wouldn't this mean that it's like Infinity Ultron only has one set of Infinity Stones, and each part of the multiverse has its own set of Infinity Stones.
Mhm.
So couldn't you just go get your team to go from like place to place and like load up on Infinity Stones, so they're like they've all got like Infinity Gauntlets, and then they go up against Infinity Ultron. But maybe that would actually tear a hole and that would destroy the multiverse if you got people like duking it out with like multiple Infinity Stones. So maybe I'm overthinking it, because I mean, if I had a criticism with this one, and it was a lot of fun, it was that ultimately Infinity Ultron seemed to go down quite easy. What did you guys think?
Yeah.
I keep hoping for a resolution to a Marvel movie that isn't a big smash, right? I think that actually one of the things that I really like about the first Doctor Strange movie is that he negotiates his way out of it, right? It is a negotiation. He does not beat up Dormammu and Dormammu moves away. Dormammu beats him up, but he says like, "I've locked us in a time loop. You're just going to keep doing this, and that's it." But like still, it's like so. What I keep waiting for is a Marvel movie that has a resolution that isn't a fight. And maybe that's because I think it's something that Star Trek, has been able to do well on a bunch of different occasions. But anyway, so I think the problem here is that at the end of the day, it's just another smash 'em up, right? And we smash the big bad. But that's something that we've seen 100 times in CinemaScope, and they're never going to be able to recreate that in a animated show on your TV, right? So they pulled out all the tricks that they could think of, including like having a fake win, right? That then gets quickly reversed, but then they have to go in for the bigger win. And sure, it's like they get all the moving parts, and the two people have to work together, and you're not sure how they're working together until the very final bit. I'm like, okay, great, you're doing the thing. It's nigh impossible to show us something different or unseen now, in that, because we've seen all the different combinations of it.
Yeah, I think the issue is that Marvel movies and comic books and all that, they it's almost like expected that there's going to be the big smash ending now, right? I guess, but that doesn't mean to say they can't try anything different, right? So
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they were sort of, I agree with you, Pete, but they sort of paint themselves into a corner by having Ultron as the baddie, because he's, it's like his mind's made up, right? You can't really reason with him unless they do a Kirk, right, where he sort of convinces the computer that it's kind of like, that it logically shouldn't exist, and then it explodes or something. That he has a sort of gets it in some kind of like philosophical loop or something. But I mean, it was so it did become that. I mean, the question I had was, it's the big final battle. Why is the Watcher sitting it out? He's put this team together, and then he doesn't fight, does he?
He's a watcher, not a fighter.
Well, he fought at the end of the previous one. Was he tired?
He got his ass handed to him in the previous one. Like, he didn't really fight. He got beat up.
I mean, he put on that snazzy armor and he was going for it. I don't know. I thought he fought. He just didn't win. I don't know. It seemed like he put this team together. He's like, okay, you guys, like, he's over there. This is the plan. And then he just sort of like then just went back to watching again, which I guess is his thing. So
yeah. Don't know. All right. Any sort of final thoughts or anything before we put this season of What If anyway to a close, and see whether we come back to talk about more at a later date. But what have you guys got? Any last minute bits and pieces you want to?
I like the zombies callback. I wasn't expecting that because it did seem to be like a sort of just like a throwaway fun episode, and then suddenly they bring back the zombie Scarlet Witch character, and there's a bit of stuff where he just like, well, what if we just dump a load of zombies on him, as a kind of distraction, mode of attack, which was quite fun. And I did like. Did everyone watch the mid-credit scene?
I did, yes. Pete didn't, by the looks.
I did not.
Yeah, there was a mid-credit this time. There actually was a mid-credit scene, yes, which kind of gives a bit of a nicer ending for Captain Carter, right?
Yeah, basically, she's back in her universe, and she's back with her BFF Black Widow from that universe, and they find Steve Rogers in the I forgot what they call it.
The Ironmonger. Well, it's not.
Yeah, it's not called the Ironmonger, is it? The Hydra Buster, is it? Hydra Smasher?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, they find him preserved in that, and it's kind of like this kind of like this whole thing of like, she's going to get her her dance moment, her kind of resolution, which was nice, and also because she's the one character they come back to as a mid-credits bit, it's almost like a kind of a wink saying, don't worry, you'll be seeing this character again in season 2. It seems pretty safe bet. I guess, I mean, the only other thing was in terms of sort of when they drop people back in their various things, I did quite like that they appeared to drop the Black Widow, who's obviously, there's no one left alive in her universe. It would mean to be like, great job, Black Widow. Here you go. You can be like the Burgess Meredith in that sort of like Time Enough at Last episode of Twilight Zone, right? We just you just wander the wastelands and read as many books as you like. Just don't smash your glasses. But no, instead, like as you say, the Watcher appears to put her in the universe where Hank Pym lost his mind and murdered a lot of the Avengers. So that now it's like Loki's doing his alien invasion, and they need help. So the Watchers tipping the scale a little bit by putting Black Widow into the fight. So
no, I thought that was a nice touch. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was nice. So but no, it was fun. Yeah.
All right. Anything from you, Pete, or has that covered it?
And I got to go watch this mid-credit scene.
Yeah. Yeah, go check that out. And sorry if we spoiled the mid-credit scene for anyone, but I don't think it's not like any big reveal or anything. It's just a bit of fun. But okay, I thought I would bring this to an end just with, I mentioned at the beginning about how there's so much stuff to see, obviously movies, TV shows, limited series, etc. And there's always lots to talk about. I wondered whether either of you guys had seen anything recently that you wanted to recommend on closing. While you're thinking about that, because I've got 2 in the bag already, so I'll recommend these 2 things. One is a limited series, like a 7-episode series, which here in the UK is actually playing on Sky Atlantic, and it's called The White Lotus. and it's a drama. It's an ensemble drama, but it's also a bit of a black comedy. It's set on a tropical resort in Hawaii, and it follows the exploits of guests and employees in this hotel resort. And it's sort of a multi-generational thing. So you've got kind of, you've got young characters, middle-aged characters, and old characters, and they're all interacting in this story. And it just takes place over the space of a week. And it's actually very entertaining and something quite different, different to the usual sort of things we talk about on this channel. But I was highly entertained by it, and would recommend it as a good bit of, one-off television, like a 7-hour movie, if you will. And also in the area of 7-hour movies, and this one I'm sure won't surprise Clive that I'm bringing this up. As many people who know me probably are aware, I'm a big fan of the film director Mike Flanagan. I really love his work. He's done a lot of Stephen King adaptations. He's done various movies out there over the last 15 years or so. He did the Doctor Sleep sequel to The Shining. And he's also been responsible for creating, producing, and directing series on television on Netflix, such as The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor, which are both great limited series or anthologies. There's a new one on there called Midnight Mass, which is a bit of a passion project for him, where it uses a supernatural horror that all takes place on an island. And he uses many of the ensemble of cast that he usually works with on his films, and much of the same crew. And again, it's a contained story, but it takes part over 7-hour-long episodes, and I would highly recommend that. That's available on Netflix. So good bits of entertainment if you can get them. What about you guys? Anything you guys want to recommend? I know I put you kind of on the spot with this, but I thought it might be a fun way to finish.
Yeah, I can. I'll also go sort of off our brand and say that I just found that Talk Show, the Game Show, is on HBO Max in the U.S., which is also where you can find White Lotus in the U.S. And Talk Show, the Game Show. Yeah, Talk Show, the Game Show, season 1 is on HBO Max. I think everyone should watch it. It's hilarious and irreverent and a fun sort of mashup of the talk show and game show genres.
Sounds good. I like irreverent things.
Yeah.
Check that out then. Okay, Clive?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things.
I knew you would.
Well, one is just finished its run on BBC. So over in the UK, it's available on the BBC iPlayer. I'm assuming it'll probably drop on Netflix soon, on the US side, which is a thriller series called Vigil.
Oh, right. Yes,
which is starring Saran Jones, and it's kind of produced by the people behind Line of Duty.
Yep.
And it's a kind of conspiracy thriller about a killer loose inside a nuclear sub. And it's
sounds
kind of,
like
I think
sort of thing.
it's a 6-part. It's a 6-part series, and so you've got like this outside investigator played by Saran Jones, like forced into this kind of very claustrophobic scenario, and trying to find out what's going on with this murder, which then becomes sort of spirals into this other conspiracy stuff, sort of partly based on some true life happenings. You can Google that if you're curious, but don't do it before you watch the series because it might spoil stuff. So Vigil, I'd recommend that. And the other one is a science fiction series. I don't know if you guys have heard this series called Star Trek. Does that ring any bells? Yeah. I've started. I started watching from the beginning the original series because the whole thing's on Netflix.
Right.
It's the version with the CGI updated special effects. So sorry, purists, but it's funny. It's funny. I mean, I've watched over the years. I've watched all of the movies. I've watched various individual episodes and things, but I remember when there was I think maybe a decade ago, I started trying to watch the original series and then kind of couldn't get into it because of the pacing. But it's weird having gone back and watched like all of the 60s Doctor Who. Now coming to Star Trek, I'm much more kind of at home with that sort of pace of television, so I can just enjoy the character stuff, the storytelling, and there's some really good like sci-fi writers that wrote for the show.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Let's see what's out there, right? But yeah, if you haven't revisited that original series for a long time, then it's if you got Netflix, it's right there. So
yes.
There you go.
And the remastered versions do look beautiful as well. So yeah. Now that's cool. Well, that's actually quite a nice segue, if you like. So if you are listening or watching this for the first time, then please do check out some of our other work. We have covered a lot of Star Trek. That's where this all began, and as well as other shows like Star Wars: The Mandalorian, and we've had various one-off specials, etc. So please check that out. We've obviously done quite a lot of the Marvel shows as well since Disney Plus was launched. So yeah, go away and check out some of that work. If it's the sort of thing you like, then please do consider giving this video a like, subscribe to the channels, and put some comments. Leave us some feedback if this is the sort of thing you like, because it all helps. Also, if there's anything in particular, we're called Let's See What's Out There because it's kind of a fairly open open quote. If there's anything out there that you think we should review or you'd like us to review in this particular fashion or manner, then please put that down in the comments and we'll have a look and see if it's something we can arrange. Guys, where can people find more of your work if they want to? Clive, start with you.
If you want to check out some of my most recent short films, you can go to Vimeo and put in my name, and you will find my most recent work as a director.
Excellent.
And I'm part of the Let's See What's Out There podcast network. Check us out on all good podcasting apps or social media, LSWOTcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And obviously you're already here on Home Media Minefield, as well as these discussions about shows and movies. We also do reviews on physical media, so DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, that sort of thing. We have product unboxings, comparisons, reviews, explain videos, all of that sort of stuff. So if you like that sort of thing, check out some of the work here. And again, if there's anything that you want us to review or look into, please add that to the list as well. That'll be great. If you want to see some of my other work in terms of films that I make, then I've got another YouTube channel right across called British Isles. That's EYLES, as in my last name. And there are half a dozen short films on there that I've written, produced, and directed. Feedback very welcome, so please check that out also. But in the meantime, we will be back, I am sure, with more things to discuss on Let's See What's Out There. But for now, I thank my guests for joining me, and I really thank you for checking this out, and we'll speak to you next time. Bye for now. Bye, guys. Bye.